I've got to talk for the next 90 minutes. Oh, God, thank you so much. Hi, I'm Clifford, by the way.
I'm Janie. Nice to meet you.
Janie?
Yes.
Hi. We've never met.
Yeah, it's only my fourth day here, so.
Wow.
Oh, excellent.
Well, this is Justin, and this is Clifford, and welcome aboard. Absolutely. Welcome
All right,
aboard.
turn around, Cliff.
And would you like one as well, a water?
I have my black cherry soda.
Yeah. Black cherry soda.
Thank you.
That's lovely. Thanks, Janie.
All right,
All right.
turn around.
Let me know if you guys need anything else.
Thank you.
I need a swift kick in the pants sometimes, but I'll be fine without that.
Yeah, I can do that for you.
Swift kick in the butt.
I just taught me everything about that. So.
Are you sure?
Why, hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. We've been doing this show, podcast, video podcast, whatever you want to call it, for just over 7 years.
This is a live stream show, but most people, I'm sure, if they're not with us right now, are watching it on an archive, maybe later tonight or tomorrow on YouTube. Hello, everybody. Whether you're watching live or it's Memorex. Oh, I'm dating myself.
Oh, wow.
That's a slogan.
That's way over my head. But
that's a slogan from
it
the
looks
past.
as good.
From the past.
It looks as good watching it later as
Yeah.
it does live, because we are at the Scum and Villainy Cantina, where
Yes.
they have a Fire and Ice Game of Thrones takeover, pop-up takeover. And
See the weirwood tree?
is that what it's called?
It's called a weirwood tree. Yes.
Last week or 2 weeks ago, we showed you guys the rest of the thing. There's the Iron Throne over there, and the Wailing Wall,
That
or
was
something
fun.
like that, or the Hodor, or something like that.
Check it out, because last week we actually had a mobile camera moving through the room. It was really quite funny. But
Yes.
it's theonering.net. We might be surrounded by the regalia of Westeros, but it's still a Tolkien show.
I feel very
welcome,
at home.
Welcome.
What? There's a white tree that plays an integral part in Middle Earth, correct?
With its eyes bleeding, yeah.
In Middle Earth,
No, this one.
this one is a white tree.
With its eyes bleeding.
So in
Yeah,
some
sorry.
way, George R.R. Martin just took something successful in Lord of the Rings and applied some death and misery to
There
it.
are many elements. There are many symbols, metaphors, even thematic elements that other writers have borrowed. You could call it an homage, or you, as Bakshi calls it, it's a ripoff. No, I'm telling you.
Well, look,
Seriously,
there are
yes, there's a lot of elements of Tolkien
there are so
in
many
Westeros.
inspirations
Lots.
that directly correlate with things in Middle Earth and Tolkien's work of
yes.
art.
Oh,
And
yes.
look, let's be honest. Everyone talks about Walt Disney abusing copyright, like Mickey Mouse should be open source, or what's the word, copyright free by now. Let's talk about Tolkien's work. The Hobbit was published 80 years ago. Come on, when does that go into the public domain? At some point, narrative fiction should be inspired by Tolkien, and we should all rejoice in and celebrate our passion without being fear of copyright over an 80-year-old book.
Well, the nature of copyright law and intellectual property being what it is, Disney has been appropriately accused for doing all kinds of skullduggery, especially in their relationship with the rights to Winnie the Pooh and the family of the original author,
and
Milne.
and so many
come on.
others.
They
But
actually created a Piglet movie, a Tigger movie, only because they wanted to advance their position in court and say, oh, we're protecting our intellectual property now.
well,
That's why they made
I
those.
like the Tigger movie.
But that was like, it was not because they needed to tell that story. It was only made because they wanted to.
I love that they told the story, but
They wanted to back everybody into a corner in the copyright law so that they could get more control over
And
Winnie
this
the
goes
Pooh.
into our conversation today about, what is inspiration, what is ownership, and
Oh, yes.
what
Yes.
what
Let's talk
things
about that
the
today.
Tolkien, because
Right.
there's two topics we're talking about today.
Okay.
Live from Scum and Villainy, we are talking about Tolkien estate disavowing the new Tolkien film starring Nicholas Hoult.
If you have been anywhere near theonering.net or seen any other news sources running around in the Google News sphere, I'm sure by now all of you attentive friends, you have seen the news from the Guardian newspaper in the United Kingdom.
And if you haven't, we'll give you a chance to go to the Guardian. Just Google it. Go to our Twitter. Go on. You can find the article because we're going to talk about it. But the other topic we want to talk about, which is just tangential to this, who owns what? Who owns these beloved stories? Is Game of Thrones is currently the biggest thing in the world right now. I think everybody in the world is watching.
Yes.
And there's so many things that are allegories, allusions, inspirations of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, and especially this last episode, which we're not going to give any spoilers, but there was one critical scene where as soon as it came on, you're just like, oh, there's Pippin singing a song right before battle.
That became a meme instantly.
Instant.
That became an instant, and it's not a spoiler to say somebody in a Game of Thrones episode was singing a song, because it's happened many times, I think 7 or 8 times over the past few seasons. Somebody is like, the bear and the maiden fair. Remember that from an earlier season? I love all the stuff that's going on, but where does this influence come from? Maybe there was a bunch of elves in Rivendell singing when Gandalf and Thorin and company and Bilbo went wandering down into the Valley of Rivendell for the first time. And what does Tolkien give us but some of his very playful verse? Really fun poetry. And these songs are built into Middle-earth for many, many reasons, so it's not surprising that George R.R. Martin also has his characters breaking out into a very poetic, sweet
It's become
song.
a trope of fantasy.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
And Tolkien himself was inspired by the old tales and created this mythology of Middle-earth, this legendarium.
But the old tales were oral tradition.
Yes.
This would be why. This is where Beowulf comes from, of obviously the oldest story in the English language.
So
and this is oral tradition, and it's handed down by songs.
So since you're watching live, we want to give it to you. What do you want to talk about first, folks? I'm watching the chat room right here. It's on the screen. You can see the laptop. I've got the chat room from Facebook, from YouTube, from Twitch, and from Twitter. Let's. What do you guys want to talk about? You want to talk about the Tolkien estate and the Tolkien film, or do you want to talk about Game of Thrones and inspiration and who owns these stories?
We should get the news out of the way first, I think.
You think?
We should get the news out of the way. But first of all, a little bit of general housekeeping. That is Justin Sewell. I am Clifford Broadway.
And in the chat room is Regular Dude.
And there's Regular Dude. Here you are joining us for theonering.net, our live Tuesday show that we affectionately call Torn Tuesday. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show.
TheOneRing.net.
TheOneRing.net.
TheOneRing.net spells torn.
TheOneRing.net.
So everybody wants to talk about, we got the Tolkien estate, Tolkien.
It's Tolkien, sir.
Yes. So the chat room is split 50-50, but let's talk about the Tolkien estate because that is top of mind today. Look,
and this is a news program. Let's get the news out of the way. What did you think when you saw that headline and said, did you say, oh boy?
Of course they did. My first
That's
thing
what I
is
thought
like,
too.
Of course they did, because the Tolkien estate has never liked anything Hollywood put out. Remember, they famously did not like The Lord of the Rings, the record-winning Oscar and box office success and beloved franchise of many fans who read the books because of the movies. The Tolkien estate disavowed The Lord of the Rings. They extremely disavowed The Hobbit.
Especially the words of Christopher Tolkien. Now, according to The Guardian, which was written in a very ham-fisted way. Yes, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you, Allison Flood, the writer of this article for The Guardian.
Is The Guardian like the New York Post? Is it kind of like not quite tabloid, but I thought The Guardian was
more like
one.
USA Today. It's more like, junk food instead of hard news.
The Guardian is like USA Today?
Yeah, it's more like junk food news instead of real news.
Wasn't The Guardian like super respected because they published the Snowden leaks and, the fact that all this stuff? But
maybe.
That gives me context. If The Guardian is like USA Today,
I would say
that's what we're dealing with. So go ahead and read through.
Look, if any residents of the United Kingdom, any of our friends in Wales, Scotland, England, Ireland, or Northern Ireland, Give us your input on what you think The Guardian is like. But
catch everybody
here,
up.
Here it is. No, take a look at this. In the French newspaper Le Monde in 2012, Christopher Tolkien, one of the few surviving children of J.R.R. Tolkien, he said, quote, Tolkien has become a monster, devoured by his own popularity and absorbed by the absurdity of our time, unquote. And that was Christopher Tolkien's response to the 11 out of 11 Academy Awards, the cultural phenomenon that was the Lord of the Rings trilogy, of course, at that time. Excuse me. And then he goes on further to say that commercialization has reduced the aesthetic and philosophical impact of the creation to nothing. Now, I am forever grateful to Christopher Tolkien for all of his hard, dutiful, and ambitious work. I'm so indebted to Christopher Tolkien for everything that he did, bringing the Silmarillion to a state of being published, and all these other books by Professor Tolkien. But I don't have to agree with this statement 100%. The fact that Tolkien's presence in popular culture had and still is so huge and so amazing is not what I would call tantamount to absurdity, and it has not reduced the philosophical impact of it. In my mind, it has driven readership like an engine, like a steam engine running down the track. People who get absorbed in these films pick up the books, especially those who are intrigued by the world of Middle-earth. If they've never been inside those pages, talk to the publishers of Tolkien's books, and they'll say, oh, Lord, yes, Mr. Frodo. By the time those movies came out, there was a massive spike in the sales of books. Happened again when the Hobbit trilogy came out.
Let's quote Christopher Tolkien again from earlier in the thing.
I love and respect Christopher Tolkien, but I don't have to agree 100% because intellectually, and from my position, it seems clear that that absorption level of pop culture could only be a good thing because it encourages readership.
So let me ask you this: how does this compare or fall in line with this quote from the Tolkien family? Christopher Tolkien, J.R.R.'s son, says, "I could write a book about the idiotic requests I have received."
Oh, I'm sure he's been tortured by.
That's J.R.R. Tolkien's son, Christopher, who was named after his best friend, C.S. Lewis. Right? No, he was named after his best friend that he lost in the war.
Christopher Wiseman,
which you'll see in the Tolkien movie. See how this all connects? But then,
yes.
But then Christopher's son. Let's quote Christopher's son, Adam.
Is Adam or Simon?
Adam.
Okay.
Adam, the grandson of the professor.
Yes.
Says, normally the executors of the estate want to promote a work as much as they can. It's true. The executors of an estate have a duty to promote the work. But we, the family, are just the opposite. We want to put the spotlight on that which is not Lord of the Rings.
What does that mean exactly?
So let's say Adam Tolkien, the grandson and one of the controlling interests of the Tolkien legacy, says, normally the executors of the estate want to promote a work as much as they can, but we are just the opposite. We want to put the spotlight on that which is not Lord of the Rings. So
does he mean other works? Does he mean Tolkien's other works?
Anything but Lord of the Rings. So how do you reconcile that statement with the first feature film about Tolkien himself? That has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings, doesn't even touch Lord of the Rings. So how do you reconcile what Adam Tolkien, the great-grandson, said a few years ago, and this opinion in The Guardian today? Does this sound like Adam Tolkien, or does this sound like Christopher?
Well, those quotes that I had from Christopher were from 7 years ago from a different newspaper. What's in The Guardian right now today doesn't have anything. There's nothing from Christopher Tolkien. What we got was just, according to this reporter, a quote-unquote terse statement.
Let's read that statement.
Here it is. that they do not endorse the film, the upcoming film, or its content in any way. Okay? It says here, the estate and family of Tolkien issued a terse statement in which they announced their, quote, wish to make clear that they did not approve of, authorize, or participate in the making of this film, and that, quote, they do not endorse it or its content in any way. A spokesperson for the estate further told the reporter at The Guardian that the statement was intended to make its position clear rather than heralding future legal action. So it isn't like...
So this is not a threat. This is not a threat. Fox,
Nope.
you're okay.
It's not an opening shot
It's not-
across
it-
the bow.
Also,
It's
the
not
way
an opening shot.
the way you read that is not negative. It's
not
it's just
negative.
a matter of fact statement
It's not
saying,
negative, and
"Hey, we're
it-
not involved in this," but it makes no comment on the qualifier or the quality
Indeed.
of the story.
And that's why I'm very dissatisfied with the ham-fisted way that the reporter for The Guardian wrote this. You know, I mean, I know you're trying to do clickbait. I know, sweetheart. I get it. I understand, Allison. You're trying to get clickbait. You're trying to get people to read your article. But this opening line is something that just makes me so uncomfortable because it's so lame and not true. The family and estate of J.R.R. Tolkien have fired a broadside against the forthcoming film starring Nicholas Hoult. They didn't.
That's not
Why
the
would
truth.
you-
That's not
why
true.
would you characterize it like that?
You just heard
Why
it.
would you characterize that like
the
that?
actual quote, which you just said, is not
It was
true.
not a broadside. It was not a fire of the cannon across the ship prow.
That's so fake news.
It is so misleading.
It is totally misleading.
What they issued was something, I agree with you. It was something I expected at some point in time, but it is only someone saying, hey, you're doing that life story? Well, cool, but we didn't authorize it. Take a look at what's on the air right now on FX.
Bob Fosse.
Bob Fosse, Gwen Verdon, okay?
Yes.
And this is a biography of their marriage and their lives, their choreography, and their work in the film business, and yet it wasn't authorized. Just like, now, these are producers who have made other shows like American Crime Story,
People versus O.J.
People
Simpson.
versus, and what's the other one they did?
Versace.
And Feud.
And
Now, remember Feud?
Yeah.
Which was the
Betty.
feud between Betty Davis and Joan Crawford. And some of the actresses who are still alive said, excuse me, FX Network.
I don't approve.
I never said that.
Well,
I don't approve. That's not authorized. And that is kind of normal. That is normal
let's talk
day-to-day
about
stuff.
the Oscar-winning film with Viggo Mortensen of this year called Green Book.
We can talk about
There's-
Green Book at the same time we're talking about the theory of everything.
Right.
Which
There's two sides of
stories
the
about
story.
a person's life.
There are two people in the story of Green Book. One person was involved in the film, and the other side was not. And so the family of the other side said, we disavow this film. So
they say we
this
didn't do this.
clickbait headline is total fake news. That's not at all what the Tolkien
Well, it's
said.
not total fake news.
It's not
There
negative.
was a statement. It's not totally
It's
fake
not
news.
negative, though.
But the spin on it is
spin.
it's unfortunate.
The spin.
unfortunate.
We don't need that negativity.
No, we don't.
You know.
We don't. However, what would be more accurate if you want to characterize it in any certain way? Guardian, if you're listening. You know, I'm never going to get a job writing for The Guardian, but I don't care. That's fine. Here's the thing, okay? You put out a statement like that and say, to no one's surprise, that's your opening sentence, to no surprise of anyone, this unauthorized film has elicited a simple statement from the family that said, correct.
We're not involved.
We are not involved.
That's it. We're not involved. That's fine.
Then they go further down the road and talk to the
and
guy
drudge
who,
up this old stuff.
this old stuff from 2012.
But they also quote an unofficial biographer of Tolkien, right?
Oh, yes. Actually, now this is John.
So,
now, John Garth is famous for his book.
John Garth, if you haven't read his books,
It's called Tolkien and the Great War. And that's the most famous title. Mr. John Garth is a respected Tolkien historian and a biographer.
Scholar.
Yes. And he wrote Tolkien and the Great War. And he says that he felt the estate's response to the film was sensible. And he goes on to say,
this is true.
biopics typically take considerable license with the facts, and this one is no exception.
That's right.
You know what? Did he see it? It makes me think, did John Garth already see the film.
Hey, Sarah Z. I don't know how to say your last name, but Sarah Z. Quote in the chat room says, "For the record, the Lord of the Rings fandom is a united front. We do not fall for any of that warmongering."
Thank you. Thank
yes.
you for that.
Thank you
for that. Okay.
I feel it. I feel it here. Cliff, thank you for explaining and putting in context this clickbait headline. It's not true that they disavow it. They
disavow it only in the sense that they want the audience to know, if you want the real details, pick up a copy of the authorized biography by Humphrey Carpenter, which is the best.
When was that
the
published?
Best. Oh, gosh, the Humphrey Carpenter biography?
In the 70s, yes.
I think in the early 70s.
Yeah,
and
he was still alive. He was still alive.
No.
Tolkien. No. Because he died in 72?
No, the Humphrey Carpenter biography actually concludes with his death. Okay. And the biography was finished after his death, which
it was started
1973.
But it was started
when Tolkien died.
While he was alive, yes?
Perhaps. That's a good question. We'd have to look that up.
Anyway, so
but all the family wants you to know is that you can enjoy this movie, but if you want the real story, look further, dig further.
So
that's all it is.
Let's be clear on the Tolkien movie coming out from Fox in just a couple short weeks,
which I have seen, which you have seen.
It is not based on any specific book, because legally, if you base it on a book, you put in the credits and you put on the title based on the best-selling book by. Yes. It is not the Tolkien movie is the best way I can describe it is it's a tone poem to Tolkien. It is not a retelling of the facts here, and here. You know, that's kind of boring. It gives you the mood and the sense and the feeling where Tolkien was coming from.
Did it not happen with Bohemian Rhapsody that way as well?
Right. Yeah. Bohemian Rhapsody wasn't. It was a little bit by the book, but you have to.
But the character played by Mike Myers, that record executive.
Yeah.
That person. Those meetings didn't happen like that.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Come on.
Yeah.
And there's other things that didn't happen quite the same way, but we expect that in a biography, at least in a film. If the movie has any success at all, and I guarantee you it will, the Tolkien biography film is highly successful for creating, as Justin said, the feelings, the energy, and the tone of emotion and emotive feeling that are put in very specific places in history, in his life. It does not, and I know the life story. Clifford Broadway, know Professor Tolkien's life story.
You made a movie about it.
I know it well enough to tell you that the movie is not egregiously playing fast and loose with Tolkien's life. It is not.
It's careful consideration to make a great movie.
The director started by absorbing the authorized biography by Humphrey Carpenter. That's right.
That's right.
The director of the Tolkien movie, Dome Korakowski, he was in front of 4,000 people in the arena at WonderCon, and he said, that is all I could do was absorb the biography, and not just this one, but other biographies about Tolkien, and to dig and dig. The writers of the script took the material that was there, and they fleshed it out to make drama. And what I thought was
not unforced drama. There's no forced drama
not
in there.
Not forced at all. It's very gentle. It's smart, gently woven together, and it's very sensible. It's
Tolkien's life was just as dramatic as they want to express because he lost all of his best friends in the war. You know,
except
so you
one.
have to set that up. Leia Peterson in the chat room, I love your quote, says, ultimately, a biopic is still art. And it's important that the creators can have some creative liberty.
Yes, of course.
You're right.
Thank you for saying that. You're 100% right. I wish I could see the chat, too.
You got your phone.
I'm going to have to come over here.
Vicky
come over here and take
says, well, fine. I'll put it like this. So,
now Leah says it's not a documentary, so it doesn't have to be one. Yeah, if you want a documentary, then you're going to make a different film than one that has.
If you want the actual biography, read the book. And I agree with the Tolkien estate saying, if you want the true story, read the book. Always.
Sure.
If you want the true story, read the book.
Now, it's worth saying There is something in the article in The Guardian that is worth observing, and that was the comment about the gambling machines. Okay?
Why do they have to bring up the one thing that the Tolkien estate sued
Because
about?
it's the crappiest thing that ever happened. It's the worst case scenario, but I think it's worth mentioning because the Tolkien estate just wants to say very simply in black and white, we didn't do this, this isn't authorized, so take it as it is, but it's not the real story. There is a history of people playing fast and loose with the intellectual property, and they made those god-awful video gambling machines. And in the words of John Rhys Davies, there are very few things on the list of human misery that will be on that short list of human misery than gambling and the addictions of gambling. So it is it was totally inappropriate.
All of the
totally
huge
inappropriate
world of
make those
licensing
machines.
and the world of fandom that we buy everything. We buy the swords, we buy the toys, we make the cosplay. One thing that they got in trouble with, the one thing. So it's unfair after 15 years of this to continue to harp on the one thing when there are literally millions of other things that have been so good. The Tolkien estate have been great stewards. We as fans, we don't all agree with Christopher's opinion. I mean, let's quote Adam Tolkien, the grandson. Normally, we are just the opposite. We want to put the spotlight on that which is not Lord of the Rings. This movie should be celebrated by the Tolkien family because it does exactly that. It humanizes the author. He is not a professor in this movie. He is a child. He's a youth in love.
He's not a professor until the last 5 or 3 minutes of the film.
Spoiler.
No spoiler. We already know. But like it says in the article on The Guardian, this is a movie that covers the first part of his life, the early part of his life. Okay? It's not the second half of his life. It's the early part of his life.
There are people in the chat room that
So
have
it's
been
not a spoiler.
that have been invited to some preview screenings, and people in the chat room are saying that the film does no injustice to the professor. It's very respectful.
Yes, very, very respectful. And you know what I would say? Can I go a little further without breaking my non-disclosure agreement?
It's at your own risk.
There's an earnestness to the film. Okay? It's not like other movies where it's wink, wink, break the fourth wall, be very, irreverent. This movie is entirely reverential to Tolkien, whether it's authorized by the estate or not. It was very reverential, very poetic, and it did what it needed to do, as my co-host just said, to create the space, the feelings, and it is a tone poem. Like Claude Debussy, when he started composing his compositions, he threw the world of classical music for a loop. They didn't know what the heck he was doing. That's not proper form. That's not the way you compose a piece like that, for chamber orchestra. Instead, Debussy was like, I'm making tone poems that create space of feelings within the music.
That's how I felt coming
art.
out of this movie.
That's what art does
So
often enough.
Cliff,
Don't you think?
you moderated a Q&A with the actors of the movie, basically the 4 boys and the director.
Yes.
At WonderCon recently.
Yes.
What was their reaction backstage when you opened the panel asking the audience, the huge audience in the biggest venue at the convention, to give a round of applause to the professor himself? We're here for J.R.R. Tolkien. What was the feedback from the actors and the filmmakers when you opened the panel saying, let's be honest, we're here for Tolkien?
Well, they were still off stage, so I don't know what their reaction was when I did that. Okay. However, I can tell you what the reaction was when we all went off stage when the end of the panel was over.
Yes.
All of them said, "Oh, God, you're brilliant, mate." And they all literally said, "You're brilliant, mate." And they all hugged me, all of them, because they were terrified that I was going to drag them over the coals for, Tolkien ephemera and, trivia details.
Yeah, how well do you really know Tolkien?
Yeah,
when did you read the book?
They thought that I was going to challenge them.
Typical nerd stuff.
No, I wasn't.
That's not what this fandom is about.
No.
That's not what this community is about.
No, I didn't want to challenge them, and I was not there to make them feel uncomfortable. The conversation, I wanted to uplift it to be about the power of language, storytelling and a certain cultural response that we have as human beings to the greatest storytelling. That's where I wanted that conversation to go, and that's where it went. And I felt good about that, and so did the director, because that's what Dome Korakowski has created. It's a film about the cultural presence and the staying power of the best storytelling. And by investigating Tolkien's younger life, you will learn so many things that you would if you read the pages.
It provides context, and
you read the pages of his biography, you'd learn the same things that you see in this film.
My fear going into the movie was that they're gonna make a bunch of like literal translations of like what we all know familiar. Like he's gonna have a best friend named Sam. There's gonna be a big tall guy. That is maybe could look like a wizard. My fear was that this movie was going to be a bunch of visual gags. Not actual jokes, but visual connotations of what's in the books. It's not that. This is a love letter to Tolkien, and we really feel it from the director.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Yes.
And I think when it comes to the history
even in the edits, even in the transitions.
Yes.
Actually, at the Q&A, didn't I compliment him on the transition he had, going from beautiful Sarehole, the green countryside, Sarehole Mill, and then shifting suddenly to the nightmare of Birmingham with its smog and flames in the distance, and the edifice of that brick tower, which is in Tolkien's biography. It's all really in there.
So let me ask you this.
Really, really in there, man.
You've met the Tolkien family. You've met members of the Tolkien estate. And,
yes.
And the Saul Zaentz Company. You're friends with Roy Tolkien, the great-grandson. Great-great-grandson.
Great-grandson.
So
might be only one. Might be great-grandson. Maybe there's two
I
greats.
think it might be one great-grandson. So knowing what you know and who you know with the Tolkien estate, it's obvious from the Guardian piece that they haven't seen the film. Do you think the estate and the family will appreciate this film once it's out?
We may hear a variety of other comments, but you have to watch out for those members of the family who don't want to look like they're directly contradicting the position of the estate.
Do you think there will be? Do you think if they see the movie on opening day and turn around and say, you know what, they done right by the professor? Do you think there will be any backlash like that, or will that only strengthen the bond between fans, the family, and filmmakers?
I don't think that they should see the film on opening day. I think Fox Searchlight should send the family an advance copy or create a special thing so that members of the family can see it before the release date just for the estate.
I think they're doing a premiere at the Royal Albert Hall or something like that.
Really? That
Yeah.
sounds great. The Royal Albert Hall?
So,
Well, now I know how many holes it takes to fill the Albert Hall. Just to quote the Beatles for you, I had to do that. Now look at this. Okay. Professor Tolkien had a life story. When I read it, I thought, well, that's just like a normal life. That's like a normal life of a person who had interesting influences, and then the war happened, and it became such a nightmare for him, and then he decided to get to work and get into the world of academia. And to be honest, it isn't terribly thrilling. It's not like wham, bam, wow, crazy business happening. It's not that thrilling. Then the movie comes out. Dome Korakowski manages to take things that I felt were pedestrian on the page and make them have more feeling and genuine the connective tissue of human life and human emotion in a lot of episodes that I read in the book that I thought were just rather whatever. And that is to the credit of the screenwriters and much to the credit of the director who handled the material with sensitivity.
do you think
Really
the
did
Tolkien
handle it,
estate
sensitivity.
had to make this public statement for legal reasons?
Yes. Yeah, just typical.
Just typical.
Just-
And
that's
it's, look, it's not negative. It's not negative. The headlines were wrong. It is, hey, we're the Tolkien estate and we're not officially affiliated with this film. That's all they said.
Yeah, so don't read all that guff from the Guardian and think that, oh, there's war now between the Tolkien estate and blah
No.
blah blah. It's not like that.
Let me ask you this, Cliff.
not like that.
Since Christopher Tolkien retired, J.R.R.'s son retired because he's 95. Have you noticed a change of heart in the Tolkien estate? The public announcements and the language has been softened than what we saw when The Lord of the Rings was out.
Indeed, I have. And not only has it, well, the tone of what they say is still, there's a scarcity. There's always been a very, very big, quiet space where the Tolkien estate doesn't usually say much at all. The less said, the better. And that's the way they do it.
Right.
That's the way they do it. And this small statement should not be misconstrued by some busybody reporter trying to make it look like a lot of guff. It is just a basic thing for them to say, well, in case you guys get the wrong idea, we're not behind this piece of storytelling. We're
They're
not
probably
behind
getting
it.
asked
We're
by,
not behind it.
by the worldwide press in every country in every language, hey, asking questions about the movie. They probably just wanted to say in public in one go, hey, we're not involved, but that's it.
This has happened throughout the entire history of the motion picture business. Whenever they've made a life story about so-and-so, like, oh, make a life story about Orson Welles, or make a life story about blah, 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 even if you're digging into...
But he is a public
there's-
figure.
there's-
Anyone can make a documentary or a movie about him. Anyone.
There's always been a situation where the family or the people come out and say, we didn't authorize that. That's just their version of the story. Why don't you
And look,
come check with us
Hollywood-
later for the real version of the
Hollywood
story.
has been very respectful of the Tolkien estate's wishes for the last 50 years. Famously, there's this movie I keep talking about, Shadowlands, starring Anthony Hopkins as C.S. Lewis. And,
at the
there's
time,
a character...
Did the family of C.S. Lewis bark and scream about, this is not the real story of our father?
I think it was nominated or won Oscars. It's a really great movie. It was directed
Yeah.
by Richard Attenborough.
We'd have to
Like-
go back in time and look and see if
So
the estate
Shadowlands,
had something to say about that.
Look it up on all your streaming things. If you want to see the first composite of J.R.R. Tolkien, they don't call him that in the movie because Hollywood was respectful, and they're like, you know what? The family doesn't want it. We won't call him Tolkien. So he's called by another name. But that was the first composite of Tolkien.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is a much more nuanced, beautiful hand touch of the Tolkien story.
And yet such a risk was being taken. Everybody knew going in, the writers, the director, and the people handling the film at the studio, they knew the risk going in by making a film without it being authorized by the estate, that this would someday be a headline, that this would someday be
Look, and this is not the only Tolkien movie about the name Tolkien that we're excited about this year. Royd Tolkien, the great-grandson, has close to completed a documentary on the life of his brother and the unfortunate passing of his brother and
Mike.
fulfilling
Royd's brother Mike,
and how Royd fulfilled his brother's bucket list.
because his brother suffered from ASL.
ALS.
I meant to say ALS. Excuse me, ALS. Also previously known as Lou Gehrig's disease. But that documentary film is so good. It's so good. It's so good. But it is a documentary, and it doesn't have to create scenes. It's actually real footage, real documentary.
There's two bookends to the story of the Tolkien name. There's how it all got started with young Tolkien being forced to move to the inner city. He obviously liked the pastures, the rolling hills, and then the movie goes into that, and then the most recent bookend is Tolkien's great grandson,
and that film is called "There's a Hole in My Bucket."
There's a hole in my bucket. So
much to look forward to.
There's two movies to look forward to.
Much to look forward to.
I saw a bunch of questions in the chat room saying, "Are tickets available for Tolkien movie?" Yes, it comes out in the UK next week, and it comes out in the US May 10th. You can get tickets now.
You can also get tickets for the May 7th special screening.
That's Tuesday, May 7th.
Tuesday, May 7th. Oh, my God. Are we going to be on the air on Tuesday, May 7th? Are we going to be in theater?
I think it's at 7 p.m. at night or something
That's
like
a
that.
special event where they're going to have a live Q&A with Lily Collins, Nicholas Hoult, and the director, Dome Korakowski,
Moderated by
Stephen Colbert. Stephen at home.
So
Stephen Colbert.
it's a
But
Fathom event.
that will be also broadcast to all the theaters.
Yeah, so it might even be in your local theater. So
Yeah.
check out fathomevents.com.
Yeah.
Most local cineplexes have support of Fathom events. You probably see them in the 20-minute pre-show. You know, it's usually like opera. You know, come back here and watch opera. Like, no, this is actually something you want to see. So Tolkien, May 7th, 3 days early, with a Q&A moderated by Stephen Colbert.
Which means they'll be piping in that live stream wherever you are in your theater.
Tickets are available now.
They'll
Go
send
get
a
it.
signal into the theater from where they're doing it in New York.
Also, we just
right?
finalized the deal. It looks like the folks at Legion M are putting up a Tolkien movie meetup maker.
Oh, yes.
So
Okay,
they're
cool.
They've set up a website where you can actually look for your town and see if there is a meetup, and you can actually go see Tolkien with fellow ringers on their website.
That's great.
So
I didn't know that deal was actually ready to go.
Yeah, remember when we used to do this for Lord of the Rings? We had
Sure did.
We
Gosh,
had
wow.
a
We did.
what do we call it? The meetup maker? No, we called it the
Line party.
line party.
We
where
had a party in line, just getting in line for movies.
so
'Cause
basically you put in your zip code and you can see what theater all the local
Yeah, that was good
ringers
stuff.
are going to see it. So we're gonna post more about that on the website, and you'll see posts on social, because we really. The one thing I've seen on Twitter is that the fans want to see this with other fans, and it's worth seeing. It's probably not going to be number one at the box office because Detective Pikachu is opening the same weekend.
now wait a minute.
We can't compete against Pokemon.
It's not supposed to compete. Now I told
It's
you
a
this.
different audience.
I told you this off screen before we did the show.
What do you mean?
Pikachu movie comes out, but it's just counter programming to have Tolkien out on the same weekend because it's a wildly different audience.
There's no way
who would wanna go see it.
Tolkien the movie is going to make the same amount as Pokemon.
It's
Let's
not-
be honest.
It's not meant to. It's meant to capture the entire audience that does not want to even go and see Detective Pikachu at all. It's a brilliant move to give the audience a much better option because the negative buzz,
Much better option.
the negative buzz on Detective Pikachu is what it is, but that audience is at one level. The much more book read, intelligent, and all the beautiful people, all you ringers, you're going to want to go see the Tolkien movie instead.
Let me ask you this: do you think this?
I'm not knocking
Do you think
Pokemon.
Tolkien
I love
movie
Pokemon,
is going
but
to have legs? Do you think it'll be in cinemas for more than 2 weeks?
I think it will do quite well when word of mouth starts running around town. Boy, howdy, I'm telling you.
You're right. You
I'm
know,
telling you.
the chat room is saying I don't want to see Detective Pikachu at all. So
Yeah, I mean, and hey, I would much rather watch the animated Pokemon movies and the original Pokemon series. I'm much more interested in that. But this live-action Detective Pikachu made a delirious mistake by miscasting Ryan Reynolds as the voice of Pikachu.
Sarah Draper,
It's such a mistake.
Sarah Draper in the chat room says,
Such a mistake.
I know all about the Fathom events as I work in a movie theater. Awesome. Get the word out. Book the Fathom event because you'll want to see this movie a second time that weekend. Please.
I guarantee you the
you'll-
casting choices in the Tolkien movie couldn't be better. Nicholas Hoult as John Ronald, Lily Collins as Edith, and
Pick a pool.
the great veteran,
get that.
the
Pick a
Star Trek actor, the veteran Irish actor, Colm Meaney, who is
Colm Meaney.
wonderful in The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, and quite a few other movies where he's really great.
Also,
Everyone, oh my God, then Derek Jacobi. Yes.
very good.
Derek Jacobi, the legend.
Look, the
oh my gosh.
performances are amazing. But,
Oh my
you know,
gosh.
we're going to talk about
So
more.
much better.
Sarah, I just want to say, since you work at a movie theater, My condolences for your workload this weekend
Yep.
as Avengers is out and movie theaters stay open for 72 hours straight.
96 hours straight.
Oh my gosh.
There's about-
Avengers. And do you know how many Lord of the Rings actors and Hobbit actors are in the Marvel Universe? Will we see the return of Hela, Galadriel, Kate Blanchett?
Makes you wonder. There are almost 2
no
dozen.
spoilers.
I read in the news today. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
So coming back to the Beatles and how many holes it takes to fill the Royal Albert Hall, whatever. I read that there's about 20 AMC branch theaters around the country that are staying open and fully staffed 96 straight hours around the clock. Whoa, what if that stuff had happened when The Return of the King was theatrically released? Well, you know what?
It
did.
did.
It did. That did happen. It happened. Okay, so I'm just telling you, like, it's going to happen again. But
Cliff, you know,
I'm telling you.
we joke about this. We've talked about it. It's not a joke. Should Warner Brothers re-release Lord of the Rings Extended Edition in theaters?
Yes.
With a major marketing push, not just a one night only. I'm talking like a full weekend release.
Yep.
Do
They
you
sure
think
should.
these screenings would sell out?
Yes, you guaranteed. Hey,
Do you
what
think-
happened? What happened when Disney dug up some of their old films and said, "Oh, we're going to do the 3D treatment"? So they did 3D animated Beauty and the Beast.
That's right.
3D animated Lion King, and you know what?
We don't need 3D for Lord of
No,
the
no,
Rings.
no, 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 no. I'm just saying that when they did that re-release, it sold out all across the country. Gangbusters. And of course, it was a familiar film that everybody had already seen at home on home video 1,000,000 times before. But that didn't matter. All right, look. Talking about influences, getting back to the George R.R. Martin thing, right? The influence of Professor Tolkien and his works are felt across the entire spectrum of fantasy and science fiction publishing. You see it in the tropes of television writers nowadays. You see it in other film writers. You see it everywhere. But this was the guy in the 1930s who was creating these stories, and his life story, the trauma of what happened during the war, the relationships he had with his friends, the fact that he was an orphan, you know, almost quote unquote, that penniless orphan story that we get in Charles Dickens all the time,
Right.
where we're always falling in love with a penniless orphan who has to rise up above the challenges of life and the class system in England, the way that it was in the late 19th and early 20th century, and still is. All that stuff is great in the hands. It's so good. It's great material in the hands of Dome Korakowski, and I have nothing but encouraging things to say. I still have a review for the film that I am not allowed to publish until May 3rd.
That's right.
Right? But be that as it may, it's not a bad thing necessarily. It's not like, oh, we're going to weaponize these statements from the Tolkien estate. It's not a bad thing that the estate says, hey, look, that's not what we did. This is not the official story. And that just leads people a little bit further down the road of intellectual curiosity to learn the real story. Don't you think that's a fine thing in the end? It offers everybody a chance to pique their intellectual curiosity and pursue it to learn more. If you like the movie and the movie doesn't tell the entire story, it's only the early half of his life, then now that you know it's not authorized, that is just going to lead you guys
It's going to be fun. Hey,
to the chance to dig in more and learn more.
Let me ask
and
you
become
this.
closer to it.
Back on re-releasing,
That's how I feel about it.
If they chose to re-release the Lord of the Rings movies, should they just release the extended editions, or should they spend the time making the ultimate editions that we know are coming?
Don't know. The actual.
Because I asked this because did you see
No,
this
see?
picture that Miranda Otto
Yeah.
published?
Yeah.
Dude, We have not seen.
What, that prom picture?
We have not seen that outfit. That outfit is not in the movies.
They're wearing those outfits in the coronation scene.
No, he's not wearing a crown in the coronation scene. That is the wedding scene.
Are you sure?
That is the wedding scene, the rumored. We've only had rumors of they filmed a wedding scene between Faramir and Éowyn. That is a wedding dress. That is a wedding outfit with the sword and the king's crown.
No, he was.
That is a wedding.
It's not a king's crown.
We've never seen this.
Faramir was made Lord of Ithilien, okay? Which is the land of Gondor to the east of the river, in between the mountains of Mordor
by King Vigo
and the river. King
Aragorn.
Tel Kontar. King Elisar, okay?
Elisar.
Actually, King Elisar, right?
Right.
King Elisar was the king, but he was made Lord of the realm of Ithilien, so that would be a different crown.
So I'm saying we've never seen this outfit. Emily in the chat room says Ultimate Editions. What's that?
Well, the Ultimate Editions is this thing we talked about years and years ago when we interviewed Michael Pellerin, the producer and director of all the behind-the-scenes stuff.
The appendices. So
the big 9 hours of appendices on the DVDs and Blu-rays of all the 6 films.
Basically, there is a whole new special edition, extended edition of Lord of the Rings that Peter Jackson always intended.
But doesn't exist.
But he filmed it. He
all
filmed it.
You know, if we're not careful in our language, then people are going to say, release the Snyder Cut all over us, okay?
You've already championed this.
Let's just say, okay.
You've championed
I
this for years.
I want to release the Snyder Cut, yes. But look, there is no other existing ultimate cut of Lord of the Rings or Hobbit films. However, Peter Jackson wants to make that. He wants to make it very much.
He filmed many scenes that we've never seen before, including that Faramir Éowyn wedding scene.
And if Warner Brothers would have paid for it, Michael Pellerin and Peter Jackson, and we did get statements from the director, from his office, if Warner Brothers had supported it, they would have rescanned the material, up-resed it, okay, for like 4K, and they also would have gone into another major in-depth documentary of everything.
He described it as
about the making of the films.
The way Pellerin described it is, what if someone today, 2019, what if someone said, look what I found in a box in the attic, a full-length feature documentary on the making of Casablanca, the iconic film that set the standard for the next 50 years of filmmaking, Casablanca. What if there was a documentary made by the filmmakers that was not meant to see the light of day for this many years?
Indeed.
That project exists. It's waiting to be finalized. There is a full, even better documentary than the appendices, award-winning appendices, that includes all of this stuff. Remember when Frodo has the nightmare of becoming Gollum, and his hair goes bald, and he's got this dark white skin and dark eyes. And this is the rumored. We've never had
what
proof.
Nightmare?
We've never had proof that Éowyn and Faramir's wedding was shot until now. Miranda Otto posting that picture. Let's look at it again.
I think Miranda Otto putting that on Instagram, I think she was genuinely shocked that thousands of new followers clicked on her Instagram as soon as she put that up.
100,000 likes on that photo.
She was like, what? Really? I just got all these new followers? But maybe, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but have you seen that IG post? And doesn't it look like those are the costumes they're wearing in the coronation scene?
I don't remember the crown, though.
All right.
And that is a wedding dress.
Google image search.
That is totally a wedding dress.
It's time to Google image search.
So, anyways, Cliff, should they should they not re-release Lord of the Rings in theaters until that crazy extended supercut is done, the ultimate or should they just give us what the fan wants, have a regular worldwide release of the extended editions 1 week after another? Dude, don't do the whole trilogy in one weekend. Do Fellowship of the Ring, and then the next weekend The Two Towers, and then the next weekend Return of the King, like they did Star Wars special editions, like just one at a time. I think fans would be through the roof. I think these showings would sell out. And
oh my gosh, you're right. This is what they were wearing at the coronation.
I told you.
It's a totally different costume. It's
Show
totally,
the camera.
totally
Show
different.
the camera.
totally different. Okay, hold on a second. I gotta increase the brightness on my screen. But all right, you guys, fear not. But this is a totally different outfit.
You see that? You see that, guys? That's what they wore at the coronation. Now let's show what the picture that Miranda Otto posted. I'm telling you, that's
Okay, let me pull up her Instagram.
Look at that. Look at that. That is
Yes.
a totally different. This is a scene that
Yes.
only rumors. This was not even mentioned in the appendices, in the documentaries, in anything.
Makes me wonder.
The rumors are true. There is more to Lord of the Rings. There's more shot to Lord of the Rings. Cliff, let me ask you this.
Okay, here it is. All right, here's the picture. Oh, all right, got to take a look. Take a look. Take a look.
I just showed him.
You just showed him?
Yeah, I just showed him. So, Cliff, let me ask you this. As part of the Amazon license deal, Amazon has acquired all footage, public and
Yes.
private,
That's true.
that Peter Jackson shot.
And didn't use. Yes.
So currently, Amazon has the rights to all of that footage. It's Amazon that could put the Unicorn Edition together.
Amazon Studios could do what Warner Brothers did not. However, Warner Brothers / New Line Cinema has the intellectual property rights. Oh my gosh, we're getting back to intellectual property rights.
Back to where we started.
The 6 films. Amazon does not have access to those 6 films. So that's a bit of a strange conundrum, is it not? Do you think, Justin, that might create a conundrum that Amazon Studios has access to all this other footage?
They legally have access to all the footage, seen and unseen,
And
from the Middle Earth saga so far.
what's this stuff you were saying to me a second ago about Frodo having a weird dream of becoming like Gollum?
Fro, you've seen that.
Have I seen that? That's not in any of the films.
Yeah, it is.
What do you mean, yeah, it is?
No, it's not in the films.
No, it's not in the films. Okay, so what is this you're talking about then? I gotta see this. Oh, I remember those. Oh, I remember those photos. Yes, yes, yes. I totally remember that now. Gosh.
That is Frodo as becoming Gollum.
That's many, many, many,
I'm
many
telling
years.
you, there's so many things.
That's so many years since I have
Miranda
seen
Otto, we love you. We'd love to have you on the show.
Yes,
we
we
know
would.
you have stories.
that. Yes, we would.
We know you have stories.
We
So
promise not to talk about Sabrina. We promise not to talk about Sabrina. We'll only
what do you
talk
mean?
about. Well,
I like that show.
I do too, but we'd rather talk about Tolkien, wouldn't we? Okay.
I'd love to know.
If Chelsea were here, she'd want to talk about Sabrina.
And
but
she was originally cast in Westworld. I would love to see her in Westworld. And
Oh, yeah.
I hope she makes a comeback.
yeah.
I hope
What was
they
she
bring back-
cast in, like the Evan Rachel Wood role, or one of the other roles?
So, John Dutton says it is in the deleted scenes.
It is in the.
So
okay.
anyway, Cliff.
I had forgotten all about that Frodo as Gollum thing.
So
Wow.
Cliff, I'm
Wow.
excited about Game of Thrones as we wrap up. We can't spoil it. People in the chat room were like, "Don't spoil it." I'm not caught up. Don't spoil it. So we won't talk about Game of Thrones until the final episode. But there are so many allusions to Lord of the Rings. So we'll just leave it at that. But this has been.
Let's just say that. Do you think the showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss are deliberate in putting those bits in?
Yes.
You think that's deliberate?
Yes. Now, and I think George Martin told them what he's inspired by.
Yes.
I think George R.R. Martin told the filmmakers, "Hey, this is where all the characters are going to end up,
Yeah.
and this is what it's inspired by." You know, is Sam Tarly Samwise Gamgee?
No.
Like there's so many. The names even rhyme. There's so many of the. But we can spend a whole episode, and I think we should when Chelsea's back. We should spend a whole episode,
Yeah.
putting dotted lines between Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. I think Chelsea will have a good time. But until then, Cliff, much ado about nothing. This whole Tolkien family, Tolkien estate. It sounds like they just needed to say, "Hey, we're not officially involved." But they didn't say they didn't like it, and they didn't say they liked it. They just said, "Hey, we're not officially involved." Leave it at that.
That's all.
It's
Yeah.
not negative. I think the Tolkien estate is going to have a good time watching the movie once it comes out.
It makes you wonder if the Tolkien estate did agree at some future point in time to a biography story of Professor Tolkien's life, would it be so fundamentally different?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
We're here every week, 5 p.m. at Scum and Villainy Canteen in Hollywood. It's open to the public. It's all ages. Bring your family. Bring your friends. Bring your kids. It is not just a bar. It's a restaurant. So all ages are welcome before a decent time.
8.
And
it's only 6 o'clock right now.
And the 6 o'clock, the doors are open. There is already a line out. So
is there already?
We're here.
Really? A line of people? Oh my gosh.
Every week. So
my good. Hi.
So
how you doing?
Cliff,
Wow.
say goodnight and tell people where they can find you on Twitter.
We're not going to continue for the next half an hour, huh?
No.
Oh, so I'm surprised. So here's our abbreviated version of the show. Justin likes to pull the rug out from under me all the time. We want to say thank you, everybody around the world, for being in our live chat and for this energized discussion that we've had today.
And take a look at on our website and social media, because we'll have all the links to the meetups for the Tolkien movie, Fathom events.
There's a lot going on. Now that Justin has confirmed even further that Legion M is sponsoring or helping to co-create that organize these big fan screenings. Like, you just let the cat out of the bag. You guys go on to Legion M's website. Is that where we get those details?
Yeah, well, I think we'll post a link tonight or tomorrow. Post is getting written up.
Very excited. All right. I'm excited about Game of Thrones also as well. I won't spoil anything, but I am reminded when Gandalf and Pippin are hanging out in Minas Tirith, and they're waiting for the clouds of war to come over Minas Tirith.
Right.
And Pippin looks very anxiously over the balcony. He says, I don't know what's worse, being killed in a battle or just waiting on the edge of one that's about to happen, right? And then Gandalf says, it is the deep breath before the plunge. That's what the Game of Thrones episode last night felt like. It felt like the deep breath before the plunge. It was really well done. It was don't you think?
I want the Hound. Yeah. I want the Hound to tell Tyrion, would you like me to get you a box?
Yes, that could actually happen.
So we'll see you next week here live.
I thought your description was good, because I like the way that I put it was, it felt like they were doing this for us before they tore our hearts out. They're like, here's this moment with this person, here's this great moment with this person, before we destroy them.
Yes.
But you know what? Professor Tolkien does that too. And where did George R.R. Martin learn how to write like that?
Where did George R.R. Martin?
Where did he learn how to write like that?
Anyway, till next time.
Hey, follow us on theonering.net. Follow us on all social media. Justin, he is at Justin's Big Idea. Me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at QuickBeam2000. And believe it or not, we're going to have another show next week, are we not, sir? Yes, and there should be a lively crowd, because that's a night when Kevin Smith is coming back here to Scum and Villainy to do Fat Man Beyond. It's going to be a great show. We love you guys. Thank you for being part of the Lord of the Rings fandom and for being such a great bunch of people. We'll see you next Tuesday. Until then, buenas noches y buena suerte. Dun-dun-dun.